Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ramani, and today we're going to talk about a type of narcissistic relationship that some of you may be stuck in, which is that euphorically recalled narcissistic relationship. That relationship where you're always able to sit there and remember all these good moments that happened and somehow hold on to something that happened 20 years ago and say, yeah, this is a good relationship, and yet really have a hard time dealing with all the bad stuff that continually happens. If you're new to this channel, I'm Dr. Ramani. This is a YouTube channel that takes on everything you'd ever wanted to know about narcissism with the hope that it helps you understand these relationships and ideally protect yourself and heal from them. And this series is on the different types of narcissistic relationships. We often talk about the different kinds of narcissism, grandiose, malignant, and all the rest of them. But in this series, we're actually talking about the different kinds of narcissistic relationships because those can have a different flair as well. It's sort of what happens to the people in it and sort of how they kind of work their way through it. Now, this particular relationship we could call the euphorically recalled relationship. Some of you may be in this relationship, some of you know people who are, but you know this relationship. The folks who say, wow, we had such a good time on that vacation in Europe, or we built that business together and had all those late nights eating takeout and building our dream. Or our first date lasted 12 hours, or we spent every morning making pancakes that spelled words, or remember we laid in bed until 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoons. And then you look up and you realize that the person is talking about things that happened 10 or 20 years ago. But the way they're talking about it, it's as though all of these fun, charming, comforting, passionate things happened recently. With the euphorically recalled relationships, all I can say is heaven bless these folks. I sometimes wonder if these relationships are the byproduct of the relationship coaching industry or the gratitude folks who tell people to just go and find all those sunshiny bits of your relationship and focus on those instead of the toxic, abusive, manipulated, gaslighted nightmare that your relationship has become. I actually think it's kind of a cruel thing to do to someone in a toxic relationship because it feels blamey. Then it's your fault for not seeing the good stuff, right? And the euphoric recall folks may just be Pollyannas who are stuck in a terrible situation. But when we look at this euphorically recalled relationship, there are a few things that are happening in this type of relationship. First, the euphorically recalled relationship may just be simple trauma-bonded justifications. We have such fun. We have such a nice life. 6 months ago, we had a good day, that kind of thing. And if there was some early good love bombing, then there are those memories to fall back on. The euphorically recalled relationship often has some good structural bones, meaning like maybe a nice house or a decent routine, that there are some bells and whistles around the relationship that can allow people to keep practicing denial and compartmentalization and keep talking about the good stuff. If you have been in a euphorically recalled relationship, you may remember that you would just want it to work, justify it. Maybe this euphoric recall pattern is a lifelong pattern. You were really good at justifying a narcissistic parent's behavior and were able to find a way to tell a story about how happy your childhood was. And so you would just ignore the bad, focus on the good, and keep crafting that narrative. Now, the second way that folks get to the euphorically recalled relationship is something I call the enough good days model. In fact, this euphorically recalled relationship style could actually be called the enough good days relationship. This is what we see too often, enough good days to keep a person in the relationship, enough bad days to question yourself. And folks in these euphoric recall relationships will focus on the enough good days to say, we took a nice walk this morning, we made dinner over the weekend, nice things, but psychologically speaking, not enough to rationalize being emotionally abused and invalidated on a regular basis. Now, third is what I already hinted at, the existing rhetoric about relationships, to find the little things to be grateful for, to tell them something, to tell your narcissistic partner something you're grateful for every day, to journal about all the stuff you're grateful for in this relationship. It's all perfectly fine stuff to do in a healthy relationship. But in a narcissistic relationship, as far as I'm concerned, this is stuff that turns a person in one of these relationships almost into their own abuser, right? Forcing yourself to proclaim gratitude to someone who's doing so much harm, and then feeling silenced about talking about the toxic stuff because they're afraid of being raged at if they do point out that stuff. There are all kinds of folks out there who want to give out, again, that pithy advice of all relationships are difficult. The work is to just find those things you love about a person. Listen, if a relationship is healthy, you don't really have to work at this. The things to be grateful for are many and manifest. You may need to calibrate a little and not take a good person for granted. I think we are all at risk for doing that. But when I see the couples and the relationships out there that are healthy and that work, the gratitude just happens. It doesn't have to be performative. The euphorically recalled relationship may just be you trying to convince yourself that this relationship's okay. To say that you're having fun, and didn't we all have fun, and aren't we happy? Say that enough times, and you may just believe it. The trying to convince yourself gets risky because you start to lose yourself and deny parts of yourself to make it work. You keep recalling the early stuff, the good stuff, to keep the ship afloat. But as you do that, more and more holes are popping up in the hull of the ship, and you are taking on water. I sort of view the euphorically recalled narcissistic relationship as a person walking through the ruins of a crumbled down house they lived in and picking out the few good things that remain, a picture, a dish, a fork, a piece of clothing, and saying, see, there's still some good things here. It's heartbreaking to witness that, and it can really get people stuck in bad situations. The euphorically recalled narcissistic relationship can be confusing for the people around you, because they're hearing from you that everything's good, you're happy, all's good in the relationship, it's all good, right? And that may mean when things really start getting toxic and fall apart, and they will, that you may actually feel that you don't have support or can't rally support because folks heard you talking about all the good stuff that happened. They may even see that the relationship doesn't look healthy, and yet you are pitching it as a treasure trove of good memories. So the people around you are confused, and people in the euphorically recalled relationships may actually feel embarrassed when they have to explain how bad things really were. In short, the euphorically recalled narcissistic relationship is a trauma-bonded manifestation, often made worse by the zeal of the world for everyone to be gratitude seekers and positivity mavens, even when a person is in a toxic mess. Folks in these relationships may feel blindsided because when everything falls apart, or the betrayals can't be unseen, there can still be a risk of looking backwards and wondering what happened. It takes folks who are in these relationships a minute to finally recognize that there is no fun dinner or vacation or house that can make up for invalidation, manipulation, and abuse. So the euphorically recalled relationship is in many ways sort of it's that surprise for many people who say they've been saying they're so happy and now they're not together anymore and they're really being open about what happened. There's a real danger because the danger of this relationship is as a person keeps pulling on these old memories they had of this relationship, talking about a trip 20 years ago as though it was yesterday. It keeps a person in proximity to a toxic situation that day in and day out is taking a toll on them. And I'm sorry, I don't buy this idea that if a person can sort of stoically keep their spine strong and stay in something, and think what happens more often, that is in the midst of that stoicism, that euphoric recall, everything's great. I got to tell you, these great things just happened, and didn't just happen, there runs a real risk of a person falling into a place of physical and mental health issues from being exposed to such a toxic situation. Thanks again.